right. We're going to talk about it right now. Dialogue with Dozell is on the airways. What up, KV?
What's up, bro?
Got it. You might need to remind the people what's the tightest organization in the world.
V3.
That's right. It's three of us. The third one is off camera. One day he'll be on to talk about baseball or something. Listen, I know I promised you guys in Dialogue in New Zealand that we would do one more leisure show to close out the summer. This actually being like the latter day of the summer, and get to business and pull off the gloves on next week. But I listened to my co-hosts who felt very strongly that tonight we needed to deal with the Dialogue needed to deal this week with these hate-filled mass shootings, and particularly one in our hometown, Jacksonville, on last week. So that's where we are. We're going to talk about that one, and he's going to lead us in this one tonight and talk about that shooting and some of the forums afterwards. But we're also going to look at the mass shootings as a whole across this country that have dealt with the gay community. A few years ago, a Jewish synagogue in Pittsburgh. 2 years ago, Buffalo, New York. Several years ago, Mother Emanuel Church, where the pastor, state representative, state senator, and others were killed. And of course, the latest one was last week in Jacksonville at a Dollar General store, right down the street from Kings Road from Edward Waters University. And Kim is just going to take us through this tonight. Let's talk about it, bro.
Well, excuse me. Thank you. Tonight, hopefully will be, and most of our shows, we try and educate our listeners. But hopefully tonight, the listeners will learn something from, the way to conduct yourself if you're ever caught in an active shooting situation. I'm an active shooter. I've taught it. I've been to numerous classes on it. I've taught it, and I just want to share some of that stuff with our listeners tonight, so they'll know what to do in the event that they're ever caught up in a situation where active shooter appears and starts, taking out people. So, if there are any questions, there are no dumb questions. If there's anything you need to ask, feel free to ask. I've asked Dozell to chime in and stop me if I'm talking, and stop me if he has a question. Send in your questions, and we'll try to get them answered. I'm going to be paying attention to the monitor, and as our meta producer gets everything going, we're going to try and answer as many questions as you have. So, with that being said, a week or so ago, here in Jacksonville, we had a racist coward, and I'm going to call him just what he is. I'm not going to call him what y'all governor called him, a scumbag. I'm going to call him just what he is. He's a racist coward. He came, drove from Orange Park, which is a surrounding county to Jacksonville, drove down to Edward Waters College, which is the oldest black HBCU in the state of Florida, Edward Waters College. But he drove to Edward Waters College, and he was observed at the trunk of his vehicle putting on a mask and a bulletproof vest. Some students there on the campus observed this, and they called their security department, and Edward Waters Security arrived on the scene immediately and pulled up on him, but they kept their distance because they saw the way he was dressed and the suspicious ways that he was, exuding himself. So they pulled up on him. The coward got in his car and he pulled off the campus and he left. He went about 4 or 5 blocks down the street. A lot of people ask me, why didn't the security do more to stop him? Once they get out on the city roads and all, they can't pursue anybody off campus. So they did the right thing. They gave a great description of him to JSO. JSO responded immediately, but this coward pulled only about 8 blocks away from Edward Waters College. At the most 8 blocks, he pulled up to a Dollar General store, and of course he was already dressed out at this point. He took his rifle and his Glock pistol, and he got out and he started executing people. He was able to execute 3 people before people actually ran away from him. And there's videos of him actually. When he first got there, some people were sitting in the car, and he raised his rifle up and took those people out. Then he entered the store, immediately took out the cashier. He ended up killing 3 people total. Some other people ran to the back of the store. One young lady, and he made it clear that it was a racist situation. He had swastikas and "I want to kill as many ends as I can" written on his actual on his AR-15. He had this actually written on there, looked like with one of those gray Sharpies or something. He had all kind of racist comments on there. He left 3 manifestos in his bedroom, one for his parents, one for the media, and the third one was for, I can't remember who it was for, but in those manifestos, he stated that he wanted to kill as many black people as he could. Or actually, he wanted to kill as many ends as he could. He wanted to start a race war. He actually had some stuff in there about Eminem and Machine Gun Kelly, 2 white rappers that are well known and liked in the black community. He said that he would like to take those guys out. Rolling Stone actually has a Rolling Stone magazine actually did an article on that, how he talked about Machine Gun Kelly and Eminem. The guy was you can call him sick in the head or whatever, but to me, he's a racist coward. That's all he'll ever be to me. If you look at him, you'll see he couldn't beat himself out of a wet paper bag, probably. But anyway, he came to the neighborhood. This was the neighborhood when I first became a police officer back in 1985. That's the first beat that I rode, Flag Street area, and this Dollar General is right outside probably 20 feet from the entrance to Flag Street Apartments. And I have a lot of good friends there in Flag Street. I had a lot back then and still have a lot of people in Flag Street. That's always going to be close to me because that's the first beat that I rode, and I enjoyed riding that area over there. So that's basically what happened in a nutshell. If you haven't heard about it, that's basically what happened in a nutshell. Tonight we'll be showing you some clips from when your governor came. They were having a memorial service there nearby where the victims were shot and all, and the governor appeared. I don't know who invited him, but he appeared and they let him take the mic, and you'll see some controversial stuff going on that we'll discuss later on when we get to it. But as of right now, I just want to enlighten everybody, let them know what took place, what happened, and if you have any questions, if you have anything, if you live in that area and you're listening tonight, something you want to chime in, feel free to do so. Like I said, I'm watching the chat line, and I want to get your questions in. This like I said, I'm also going to talk about what to do if you're ever caught in a active shooter situation, the way you should conduct yourself, and that a little later. But I'm trying to do everything in sequence, so that's pretty much what happened. Dozell, you got any questions on it?
Yeah, So Jacksonville is just what happened in Jacksonville on last week, and man, I hate to say this as a person of strong faith, as a person with law enforcement background, a family law enforcement background, and all of these factors. I hate to say this, but I just see that this is what this country is coming to. And of course, you and I don't exactly see 100% on gun control, but at this point, I think that you're educating us how to react. I'm going to talk a little later on how cities and people heal from these types of things. I think that's the best we can do is educate and equip people, because I don't see it getting any better. I think we all got duped in 2008 with the election of President Obama, that America had become a post-racist society. 2006 up until today, we've done everything to show that we are anything but that. There was an activity I'll talk about on the other side of the break in Orlando this past week. So to be sure, because we don't want to seem, yes, it does. Of course, my brother and I are African Americans. It has affected our community. And we have suffered, but we have not been the only we have not been the only victimized group. The gay, lesbian, and all the Q, that whole group has been affected on several mass shootings. The Jewish community has suffered, and I just want to look at the whole thing with hate filled. What's going to turn that around? I don't know.
Well, it's been an issue that's been since we were born, and it was way before we was born. And to answer that question, I don't have the answer to that question. I believe in educating people. We know that it's taught. It's not inherited. It's something that you learn to be. You're not born with it. And it's just, it's one of those things that, hopefully, I never thought I'd see a black president. So hopefully it'll be something that we can, you know, stop it before I leave here. I don't know. You never know. So tonight's show is also going to be about healing. And I see I got a question from Mike Anderson. I saw one from Aaron. I think his name was Aaron Henry, said about racist. I see right now we got one from Mike Anderson. Can anyone reform a racist? There's a show on, I believe it's not Netflix. It's on it'll come to me in a minute, but it's called American History X. And Mike, if you check that out, it's about this white guy that was very racist, and he went to prison. He befriended a black guy in prison, and he came out. He turned his life around, and he came out and he's trying to prevent his brother from going the same route that he went. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard several people tell me it's a great movie, and I'm waiting to see it. For some reason, my cable is acting up where I can't pull it up, and the shows, the apps that I can pull up, they don't have it. So what is that? Prime has it. It's called American History X. If you want to check it out, I heard it's a great movie. I haven't seen it again yet, but there was a racist who was reformed. So so what those are where you want to go to first? For you tell me what you want to do first here.
Well, I tell you what I'd like to do. I would like to. I have a graphic that in the graphic that we'll tell our viewers. It is dated. I think the data is 2020. Madam Producer put that up, and it just kind of shows the motivating factors behind mass shootings. And I'm really I needed it enlarged actually to be able to see it. But it looks like mass shootings, is that against race-based? Is that one of the largest ones? So it's just to show, if you can see the stats on that, and it needed to be a little larger. Thank you, Madam Producer. So one of the things, Kim, I think we need to understand, and I would think that there's someone from the psychological community tonight on here. One of the things is that as long as this world turns, I don't think we will ever eradicate hate. We had integration to try to overcome that. You and I was the first group in the Mecklenburg County, which is Charlotte, North Carolina, was ordered to desegregate the schools, and our mother was transferred in the middle of the school year to a white school, and all of that was to try to, if we desegregated schools, that the younger generation could get to know each other, and perhaps we wouldn't have these issues. And ironically, I just retired from the school system 4 or 5 years ago, and there's a generation of young people who has no concept of racism. They use it more as a crutch or as something to just say, but they have no idea of what racism really was. You and I know. I remember when the lunch counters downtown Jacksonville were still segregated. I remember axe handles Saturday. I remember when Hemming Park, when Ku Klux Klan marched through there. Those are images that are kind of fresh in my mind. I remember when we went to Burger King for the first time. All we could do was go through the drive-thru, and to get a Whopper was like, wow, we can finally go through this line. We weren't even allowed to go through the drive-thru. So mass shootings, hate is just something that's going to have to be eradicated, and I think it's more of a spiritual issue. But to be sure, it's not just directed at racists, but it's against people, mainly for a lot of people who don't, for Caucasians who are anything different from them. They have issues. They're and this, God knows I'm not saying that about everybody, because you and I have great friends whose skin color is different than ours. My children are interracially married. There's no issue here. But there's a segment, and unfortunately a large enough segment to do damage in our society, that hates Asians, that hates gays and lesbians, that hates blacks, Hispanics, hates Jews, hates anybody that doesn't look like them. And I don't know what it will take to overcome that. But what I think we have to do is, I go back to gun reform. I was on a trip, on a golf trip last week, week before last, whenever it was. And one of the brothers that we did some man caves at night. One of the things we talked about was our traveling experience. And the brother talked about being in Dubai. He said in Dubai, they don't have that because people don't have guns. And if they have a gun, they're going to lose an arm. It's going to be, you're going for the jugular. And so we don't have those kinds of problems. And I know that sounds radical. And I know we're afraid to control guns because we say everybody got a gun, especially since this clown has made guns accessible like every governor in the South has done. But if we have some of those laws, I promise you, I don't care what they're carrying now, some of this stuff will get cut out. I promise that. Since we can't regulate hate and evil, we can't put laws that say, okay, you get caught with it, you're going to spend the rest of your life, if you have a life left, in prison. So I just, I'm just appalled.
So you're saying tougher penalties and I guess gun control, gun laws is what you're saying will help the situation?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's not a reason that an individual needs to leave their home with their gun. I'm not saying take guns out of the home. I'm not naive to the fact that we have to protect our homes, but there's no reason for a person to be walking around with a gun on them. I think part of that law, and we're probably going to end up doing a second show, a second part to this show, maybe next week or maybe the following week. But I want Senator Osgood to come on and just talk about the concern of the Black Legislative Caucus with Tallahassee making Florida you can carry free. It was just, and they all told us when we were there, and we actually think that we kept them. We did a mass demonstration on the Capitol the day before the gun law was voted on, and they took not open carry, but where you could just walk around like those thugs in Michigan with guns in your hands. They took that out. They didn't vote on that. They said that Governor DeSpickle's going to propose that later, but they took that out of the law. And the Black Legislative Caucus thinks that it was just another thing to help promote mass suicide, mass genocide of Black people. There's no need for anybody. You're law enforcement. I'm previous law enforcement. Maybe we may feel the need to carry a gun. Why should the average person need to go and leave their home with a gun?
I'll answer that by saying this, and maybe if there was something they would have started from the beginning, that guns weren't so accessible and all. But now the way that guns are out there in this country and in this state, in this city, and I know because I can speak on this city. So many people carry guns now that I'll never walk out my door without my gun. If I'm out cutting my grass, sometimes I have my gun on me. That's just how Jacksonville, and Jacksonville, we lead the state in homicides. Yeah. We've been doing that for the last several years now. I've been retired 13 years from the sheriff's office. When I retired, 5 years into me retiring, we led the state in homicides, and to my knowledge, we still do. Of course, that's per capita, so that's why we have more than the bigger cities like Miami. But it's just I want to be caught out there naked without a sidearm on me or somewhere close by me. I wouldn't do it. It's just too much that goes on. Here recently, I stopped carrying my gun. I stopped wearing it on my side when I leave. I'll take it with me, but I wouldn't put it on my side. And when this shooting happened the other day, it made me come back to my senses. What if I would have been inside that Dollar General? My gun was in the car. It's not doing me any good in the car. So, I have to keep it on my side. And of course, I've gone back to that, and I'll continue to do that. I'll carry a gun probably till I leave here because of the way this city is. If something happened to me or one of my family members, especially one of my family members, and I wasn't able to defend them, that'll drive me for the rest of my life. If I'm out with mama, you know how it is about mama. If I'm out with mama, with my wife, Donna, or my grandkids, and something took place and I'm not able properly to defend them, I know I'm going to jump into it because of I'm always jump into it. But if I don't have my weapon to defend myself and that person's heavily armed, then it's you know, I don't really have a chance. So I just think that I always carry a gun, and I see some comments here.
Yeah, I think Brother Grant. I think that's Lisa's soon-to-be husband. I think that's our cousin Lisa's husband. If I'm not, Brother Grant, let us know if I'm right about that.
Joe Trotty has display of hate groups on the full display, as you stated in Orlando this past weekend. Now I fully understand freedom of expression, but it's these types of demonstrations that must be taken serious. I saw where Sean chimed in earlier. We're doing good, Sean. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for joining us, Joe. And I'm sorry, you go ahead and finish saying what you're saying about Aaron.
No. So that he spoke of the Orlando. I see what Aaron said. I pray that I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Aaron said that Trump gave racists hope. You did a great breakdown on Trump and whether he's actually a racist or whether he just used race to amass a following. Whatever that is, he has definitely wakened up America, racist America. And I think that God did us a favor by showing us that we are not a post-racial society. We are very much a racist society. Now, thank God for everybody in 2020 who marched across this country with Black Lives Matter, during the George Floyd protest, to let us know that there are brothers and sisters, and then Kim, there are many brothers and sisters whose skin color is different from ours, who are not racist in their orientation. But for the percentage that are, they're able to do a lot of damage. The other day, last Saturday in Orlando, Florida, or get a hold of this, Orlando, Florida, the tourist attraction of the world, on I-4, the overpass, the Ku Klux Klan actually protested standing right over that. They had like a 3 or 4 hour march on both sides of that expressway. And I understand that some people were passing by, Black people were saying, why are you hiding under your mask? And they openly used the N-word. So this is what and they were saying Jews would not replace them, the old Charlottesville theme. So this is where we are. And it's in the open, it's exposed. And the question is, what are we going to do with it? I did a little research in the White House, which has a white president and an African American and other part of her makeup. Vice president has proposed like a 5-point plan where they're reinforcing law enforcement, reinforcing training in particularly universities and colleges, where they are giving community-based organization grants to train on anti-hate, so forth. But hate is, you said it earlier, you're not born to hate people, but it only takes a second of orientation for you to do that. This scumbag was 21 years old. Can you imagine that? And he lives too close to home, if you know what I mean. Orange Park, got family there, and it's crazy. But not to say that they people look at South Florida like, okay, we're utopia. No, we're not. We know that they're here, they're all over, and this governor has awakened this sentiment in this state. I know you want to talk about the governor. I don't know if this is time not, but
yeah. I was just looking at it. It's 8:26. We better probably go ahead and get into it, since we said the show was going to be about that shoot. Let me go ahead and get into it if you're done with what you're saying. If not, go ahead and finish.
Yeah, you want to do it now? You want to do it on the other side of the break?
Can we go ahead and break now?
Yeah.
I know it's 8:26, a few minutes early, but if we can go ahead and break now and then go ahead and jump into that, because I really want to go ahead and get into that.
Let's do that. Dozell.com got all your virtual needs. Listen, I'm gonna get this out of the way. I wanted to, this certainly would have been a time, would have been very easy to do a dang dog or are you serious? But I want to do something positive in light of tonight's morbid topic. And I want to do a shout out to Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, who the first words out of his mouth after the startling victory for the Colorado Buffaloes 21-point underdog last week was, I just thank God. I just bless God. I thank God for the opportunity. I thank God for bringing us through. That's what I want to shout him out, because he's more than a man who knows X's and O's and football plays and philosophies. He is a man who is able to actually pour into a whole new generation of young people and make an impact nationwide. Shout out to you, Coach Prime. They came against you when you left Jackson State. You made Jackson State better than it was before you got there. You made the San Francisco 49ers, the Atlanta Falcons, the Baltimore Ravens, the Dallas Cowboys, the high school that you formed, that you coached. Everywhere you've gone, you made it better. And that's what we're called to do in this life. We're called, this forum, my brother and I are trying to make our world better by the topics that we discuss. You're making Colorado University, Boulder, Colorado, and college football better because of your presence. Shout out to Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. Thanks, Coach. Go ahead, Kim.
We're going to jump right into it because I want, like I said, I want to make sure we have enough time to cover some of the things I want to cover about the shooting tonight. And I'll speak on it before I actually show some of these clips. Ron DeSantis showed up at one of the memorial services here at Jacksonville, right across the street, basically almost across the street from where the shooting has occurred. And he was able to get to the mic. So they gave him the mic to speak, and the people in the community immediately started booing him. They booed him when he first started speaking. They let him talk for a little bit longer, and then they start booing him again. When they start booing him that second time, we have a councilwoman by the name of Jacoby Pittman who stepped in and grabbed the mic from him and said, "Hey, y'all let him speak. We want to hear what he has to say." And she made some comments about, because anytime he's bringing money into my community, I want to be able to get those gifts. A lot of people took offense to what she did because they didn't want to hear what DeSantis had to say. He hasn't done anything, and I'm not going to get into it, but with his ignorant comments that he's made about blacks benefited from slavery, and along with some of the other things that he's done to the African-American community, nobody wanted him even there. He showed up uninvited. We don't know who invited him, but he showed up, and they definitely didn't want him to speak. They didn't want to hear what he had to say. So when Jacoby Pittman, our councilwoman that's been solid in our community for years, I support her. I'm going to continue to support her. I really don't agree with her taking the mic from him. I think they should have let him boo him on off the stage because I have no use for him. That's just my personal opinion. But this is about Jacoby, and I know Jacoby has a good heart. I know what she stands for, and she's great to our community. So, but a lot of people took offense to it, and they're trying to slam her now and saying that she needs to, because they supported her to get her in office, and they feel like that she turned their back on them. So anyway, we have some clips that we're going to show up. The Meta producer, if you'll put that first one up when DeSantis spoke at the memorial service. If you put a portion of
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is here. We're going to ask the governor if he would come now and bring remarks.
I don't know if you can turn the volume up on that, Madam Producer, or not, because it's real. The volume is very low.
I want to just say to the councilwoman, I got you. Don't worry about it. We've already been looking to identify funds to be able to help, one, make sure there's adequate security for Edward Waters College. We are not going to allow these institutions to be targeted by people.
Okay, listen, y'all. Let me tell you, we finna put parties aside, cause it ain't about parties today. A bullet don't know a party, so don't get me started. Okay, Jacoby is nice, but Ann is not. Now, if the governor wanted to come here and he bringing gifts to my community, y'all know I'm taking the gifts because we've been through enough already, and I don't want to go through no more. Now, y'all just be quiet just a minute and let the governor say what he gonna say, and we gonna get this party started.
Thank you, Madam Producer. What Jacoby was saying there, they actually had her on the news earlier today, and they talked to her specifically about this. And what she was saying, what she was trying to say then was if the governor's going to bring money, he made a comment that he was going to bring money to make sure that Edward Waters College was funded well enough where they can provide security for their campus, Edward Waters University. I'm sorry, so that they could provide the proper and adequate security for their campus. And that's what the governor had already talked to Jacoby about, that he would be able to provide that, make sure that he would provide enough resources and money that they'll be able to properly patrol their campus. Because that's where this racist coward wanted to, conduct his go carry out his plan there at Edward Waters University. He would, and thank God he wasn't able to do that, because there would have been a lot more bodies. It would have, his statement would have been bolder, and I'm just thankful that it didn't happen there. So, but that's what Jacoby was saying. She wanted to, if he's going to bring resources to her community, she was going to take them. And that's what she stated today early on the news. In the heat of the moment, sometimes things don't come out like we want them to. And I just think that Jacoby had good intentions. And I'm open for comments. If anybody want to comment, Sean, Joe, anybody want to comment on this, I'm open for comments. Mike Anderson, Aaron, anybody that's here that wants to comment on it. I just think that Jacoby had good intentions on that. Like I said, she's been too strong in our community. She speaks up. She speaks out. She's always there when there's a need in our community. And I just think that she had good intentions on that. So the second clip that I like for Madam Producer will put up is a activist we have in the city. We had a service on Saturday, and it had nothing to do, or I won't say it had nothing to do with the shooting. It was all about healing. And the mayor's office, Donna Deegan, Keisha Burton from the mayor's office, who's in charge of community engagement, and Jacoby Pittman put this service on for members of the community who need to heal. And they had psychiatrists there. They had all the help that you can have there. And while I'm speaking on that, if there's anybody that's still hurting from this, feel like they need help, you can call, especially here in Jacksonville, you can call 211. That would be the United Way, and you can speak on that you need help with the shooting, some counseling on the shooting, whatever. They're there to help you. I spoke with Keisha Burton prior to coming on, and she gave that number 211. So if you feel like you need some help, contact that number, and they will, carry you through whatever help they can give you. But that's my point. So the second clip where we're at the meeting at Reverend Newman's church, and the activist got up and spoke. I really don't want to call her name either, because she's a grandstander in my opinion, and I don't want to help her grandstand. So.
And actually hush, and for you to say that we're gonna have a safe space, but we got homeland security. No, it ain't safe to me today. No, but that's okay. But I'm gonna take it and let God help me and talk about it. But I need an apology because we invested in her. That's my right. Trust invested in her. I'm an electorate that invested in her. And for her to do that to me and to do that to the people when this man came into our community and defiled us. And by the way, when you're talking about mental health, wait a minute, let me say this. When we're talking about mental health, this man that she hushed us for gifts, blood money, that went, wait a minute, the Medicaid dollars have been taken from us for mental health, and nobody cares. And we can't talk. We got to.
Thank you, Madam Producer. That was from the meeting on Saturday. Dozell, you got something you want to say?
You know what? I just learned that Janis has been on since she's been in the green room for all this time. I would like for her to respond with you on that. If we can bring her up and get her.
Okay. Have you been keeping up with it, Janis? I'm sorry, I didn't know you were in the green room. Have you been keeping up?
Yes, I've been reading the comments from your viewers all along and the videos. Yes.
Okay. So like I say, this particular community activist and people got the right to say what they want to say. This is America. You can speak on what you want to speak on. I just happen to know, I happen to be familiar with her. We know each other, but I'll leave it at that. We know each other. We know, but I don't follow her. I'll say it like that. And I'm trying to be nice. I don't follow her. I've been in meetings where her and a particular other individual who's no longer with us would complain about anything that we do. I remember we were doing the body cam when JSO first got body cams. We did a meeting in each zone. Those two individuals was there, and they spoke against the director. I think he was director or either chief was being as polite and bending over his backwards as much as he could, but you just could never. These are those people you never can satisfy them. And with her carrying on the way she carried on, that particular memorial service, one of the families was there. About 8 members from one of the victims' families was there. We walked them in, set them on the front row. She knew they were there. This whole service was supposed to be about healing and getting help for the victims and all. And she stood up and took a grandstand like that once they passed the mic and let people say some things they want to say. But like I said, that service was not about shooting and talking about that type of stuff. It was all about healing, and she took that opportunity to grandstand the way she did. So Jacoby was there. That was Jacoby who was standing right behind her in the blue outfit, and then you see Lakeisha Burton and Pastor John Newman who come up. Keisha grabs the mic from her, and they try and escort her out. She went outside. The media was not allowed inside. They were outside. She went outside and grandstood in front of the media, I say. So but anyway, I happen to get too many other comments. I see Mike Emerson said, badges don't work through. Her intention was pure systematic racism must be replaced with a system of justice. So, Janis, you're here with us now. I want to hear from you a little bit.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and my thoughts and prayers, condolences are going out to the families affected by that shooting. But these shootings are everywhere. Those that are racialized hate, as well as black on black crime. I mean, we have a gun problem here in the United States, and we've had it since black people have been in this country. There has been racialized hatred, racialized violence, lynchings. I mean, Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Medgar Evers was a NAACP field director who was murdered by a white male, hate violence in 1963. We had Malcolm X, who was a minister, who was murdered by Black individuals. We believe that was by our U.S. government by design. However, we have a gun problem in the United States. With regards to that clip that you just showed, I have two things. On one hand, I understand the legislator, Jacoby, that you mentioned, giving deference to the highest office in Florida, the governor, and allowing him to come and offer condolences, state how he was going to assist that community and other communities with violence, particularly that college that was initially targeted by the racist shooter. However, on one hand, I think he should have been allowed to be there and take his lumps by the community that was booing him. But on the other hand, I agree with the individuals who were there at that event who were booing him because this governor, your governor there in Florida, really has created a heightened level of racist speech, hate violence, with his move to erase Black history, with his move to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion. in your corporate sector as well as your public sector. So I heard some people in that crowd during a clip that I saw on national news saying, you, meaning DeSantis, you're the reason for this. And I think there's some truth in that. So I think the people should always be heard. And the people always have the ability to get rid of those elected officials that are not doing what the people need. As a former elected official in Washington, D.C., I won 3 re-elections. Well, 1 election beat the incumbent, and then 2 re-elections until I retired and moved out of that district. And recalls are always within view of the people if they don't like what their elected officials are doing. That means the governor, that means that council person, that means anyone. So it's about mobilizing and being activating your power, which is your vote, or to recall that person if they're not doing what they need to do. But I certainly do understand her if she's the one who invited him, or if the governor just came of his own volition, which he should have. People were murdered. But the reality is the hate speech is on the rise. Violence, racialized violence is on the rise because of the conservative right-wing Republicans who are activating their base of hatred.
Yeah, I want to respond, Kim, if I could. Let me respond to that.
Okay.
As you know, Kim, because whenever I'm with you, I got my computer out and registering people to vote. I register. That's what I do. I register people to vote. Jan, DeSantis won in 2018 by 30,000 votes. He defeated a black man. It was a general feeling that in 2022 that this black man, the former mayor of Tallahassee, would come back and defeat him, because we also passed a referendum that returning citizens in the state could vote. Now, DeSantis led the Republican legislature to do a stall tactic, and what the compromise by Florida Supreme Court, which is all right-wing Republicans, did was said that anybody who owes a fine is ineligible to vote. The only thing that prevents a convicted felon in this state from voting is if it's a sex crime or if it's anything to do with homicide. Anybody else can vote. They have the registration form to discourage people from voting the way they have it drafted. But those of us who've been educated know how to tell people that, yes, you can vote. You can have a battery on a law enforcement officer. You can still register and vote. DeSantis in this legislature spent millions of dollars coming up with this goon squad that intimidates people now to try to scare them that if you register to vote and you do vote, then you're charged with a felony. And they've done everything along with the regular voter suppression tactics that you've seen all across the South. So thinking that returning citizens would be enough alone to send DeSantis into packing, unfortunately, that candidate imploded during the interim period, and he was not available. And a candidate that we thought was not overly strong at this point to defeat DeSantis ran, and it bared out just as it looked like. So as one who's on the ground every day registering people to vote, there's a very apathetic, and with all of the scare tactics, people are scared to vote. People are just plain scared because that's what they've done. They've intimidated them. So Florida, in turn, has turned into a red state. And what you saw in Jacksonville, what happened in Orlando, I mean, in these, Orlando is kind of like borderline. The South Florida was looked at as kind of blue. Jacksonville was blue this last election cycle, but we kind of look at the rest of the state as just being totally red. And along, unfortunately, with that redness comes the prejudice, comes the white supremacy, and all of that. So we've got to really get out and work our hips off to get people of color to go to the polls, just like they did in Georgia. They've turned that to more of a purple state, to a blue state, just like we did in 2008 and 2012. We've got to do that in this state, and believe me, we're doing that. But it's going to take a massive effort, because you're seeing what happened there bared out. And Kim, I'm gonna tell you the truth, man. They should have. I'm good with Jacoby saying, yeah, take the bag. He's bringing us a bag. Let's take the bag. But yeah, boo his, you know what, into oblivion.
Let me jump
I
in here.
agree with you on that.
Let me jump in here and say that American citizens in any city, state, around the country never need to think that an elected official is doing them a favor by bringing the bag, bringing money. Those are your tax dollars. Those are your tax dollars for the generations that Black people have been in the United States. So it's not that he's doing that elected official or any other a favor. They're doing their job. And so the voters that need to really take the reins to say, if they didn't want that person there, don't let them speak, don't let them be seen, because your governor was very childish also last week and very partisan in not showing up when the United States president was there to walk through the natural disaster areas to bring more money just by seeing it and saying, look, we need to bring more money to these areas that have been impacted by the hurricanes, the flooding, etc. That is the job. That was the job of the United States president. That is the job of the governor and all of those other public officials that are there, like the FEMA individuals, to bring resources to help the people. And so your governor was very, very childish and very partisan in not showing up with the United States president because he didn't want to be seen with a Democratic president. That was childish and not serving the people of his state. If he is going to win his Republican nomination, then he should win that on the merits, but should not have done that. So on the other hand, we have the people in the Jacksonville area who didn't want him there because of the rhetoric and because of the policies that he has been pushing and getting enacted that's seeking to, number one, erase Black people's history in the United States and totally whitewash it and retool it to something that is not true. Number two, as you spoke on the voter suppression tactics. And so you have to continue to be very vigilant in those efforts and getting people, the returning citizens who can vote, as well as all of the everyday citizens that perhaps have not been activated to vote. Those 30,000 votes that you lost by getting a Democrat in, those people need to come out and understand that they have the power. I just wanted to say that. Don't ever think that getting money,
you're right, Janis.
it's not right. The job. It's the job.
So things I want to add on to what Dozell said about, and one reason I want people to totally understand why we're speaking out so much against this governor. This is the same governor, as Dozell said, he put all kind of rules and laws in place about voting and scaring people into voting and all that. When convicted felons were allowed to get their voting rights back, if they applied and got their voting rights back, he actually started the voting police that would do not just police illegal voters, what he considers illegal voters. So if you $10 million, if you're let me get this out, Dozell, and I'll get back to you because I wrote it down so I don't forget it. But he this governor, if you're a convicted felon and you got your rights restored where you can vote again, but you hadn't paid all your fines up and everything, he actually have the voting police who will go out and put you in jail before that reason. Or they're going to knock on your door and say, before you have you voted, well, you better not vote because you haven't done this yet. Like Dozell said, the intimidation factor, trying to scare people from voting. That's wrong. Speaking on Jacoby getting that bag and her called the activist called it blood money and all that, I don't blame her for going after that bag. It's just like Janis says, that's our tax dollars. So I think we're entitled to that. One thing that I asked somebody the other day, I was talking at lunch, and I was talking to somebody about this, and I said, why don't we ever see Black people go out and do mass shootings on white people? And nobody at the table could answer that. And I'm not saying that I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm not implicating that at all. I'm just saying, why don't we ever see that? I've never heard of that. If somebody that's listening has ever heard of that, speak out now. I've never heard of it. But I mean, it's a thing that, like I say, racism is taught. We know it's not inherited, it's taught. And if it's taught, then it can be taught not to hate. Not to hate can be taught as well. So, I want to get that out.
I want to ask you, Kim. Go ahead, finish though.
No, go ahead. I didn't say anything. Go ahead.
Okay. I didn't mean to cut in on you a second ago. I was just saying that $10 million has been spent for that election goon squad that you were talking about. $10 million has been allocated. Now, in preparation for this show tonight, I actually was in a conversation earlier today about why we don't do that. Did you all not know that Black people are some of the most, and it's a blessing from heaven, we're the most forgiving people on the planet.
Oh yeah.
We have been abused like nobody else in this nation, maybe other than the our indigenous brothers and sisters. And we're forgiving. We move on. We pick up. We don't linger. And I think that's to our credit. Well, I know as a minister, spiritually, that's absolutely to our credit. But had I not been raised in a household where we were, I likely would have, because we were just giving a lot of thought and kicking this around today. And the thing that made Dr. King's method of protest back in the 60s, one that I gravitate to, is because of its emphasis on love. I preached about love yesterday. It was its emphasis on love. But other than that, man, that Black Panther stuff is all over a lot of us. You know, we don't carry the guns. We're going to meet fire with fire, which is kind of impractical because we don't have the numbers. But that's just where we are. That's why we don't do that. We're more of a loving people, and I think I know that's a blessing from God. And we want to thank Aaron. Man, Grant, you've really been active tonight, and we're very grateful to you.
Aaron is one of my cigar brothers, man. He go to the cigar lounge with me. That's one of my guys from the cigar lounge.
Okay,
and I saw
Aaron,
I appreciate you chiming in, bro.
Yeah, saw the cigar Don on too. You know, guys, if you are both able, we'll do this part 2 tomorrow night. I'm gonna try to get John Newman to come on and try to get Senator Rosalind Osgood to come on, because she predicted. I was in Tallahassee, as I said earlier. I was in Tallahassee when this whole gun thing was voted on, and the Black Caucus was saying, go back to your churches, pastors, and bring in people to train guns and train everybody you know to get registered to carry a firearm, or train them to carry a firearm, because you really don't have to be registered. But I agree with you, Kim, get the registration. And say go back, because that's what they've turned this into. They want this to be the Wild Wild West. They want to be able to kill us. We have stand your ground laws, which took Trayvon Martin out and others now. And so it's a setup. And so I want to bring these minds on and talk about, we won't be able to kill me, Janis. We won't be able to handle this question of evil.
Well, let me just say that you'll soon be seeing me. I said this to Kim Friday, going full metal jacket with ammunition strapped across me here in Michigan, which is an open carry state. I truly believe in that. And I think that on some level, we Black people who have been targeted with anti-Blackness, racialized violence since we touched ground in this country, the demons that have done this to us. When you look at, are we safe anywhere? In our churches, we had a white male come in and pray with Black people at Mother Emanuel down in South Carolina and then kill them. We've had, which has happened there or nearly happened there in Jacksonville. But, you know, growing up in Detroit, in Michigan, considered the North, many of my cousins and my siblings and I, were not allowed to go to Alabama, where our grandparents were on my mother's side, back in the 60s and 70s, because we didn't know, quote, the Black codes, how to act, because we had the perception of freedom of movement, freedom of being here in a northern city, even though racism was insidious here in Detroit as well. However, seeing, Black or colored only dining, restrooms, water fountains, things like that, our grandparents were fearful for us, and this is in my lifetime, to even go to that state or even driving down to Alabama and crossing through those states. So that's part of the history that Black Americans need to be teaching their children. Younger people are not as aware of that as we are, those of us who grew up in the 60s and 70s and actually experienced racialized violence. You can talk to your mother who's still here. I talked to my father, who told me about seeing bodies of Black people actually swinging from trees. Those are the things that are etched in our mind, and we need to pass that on and let our young people know that this happened in our lifetimes and it is on the way to happening again. We already have public officials, which are police officers, who are killing us and then not being held accountable. And so it's not a far stretch to see that everyday citizens who happen to be white, who are, inspired by hate or replacement theories, getting, trying to wipe us out. And as you said, Black people tend to be more forgiving, but I think we need to be prepared for what has always been in the United States anti-Blackness, backed up by racialized violence.
Okay.
I agree totally with you, Janis. I still have a couple of pictures. I know it's time for us to get out of here. I got a couple of pictures. Madam Producer, if you don't mind putting those pictures up first, and then I got one more clip.
Kim, can I ask you one thing?
Go ahead.
Well, I'll wait till you wait till you do the pictures.
Okay, I'll go through the pictures real quick. This is one of the little memorials that was placed there by a white gentleman who came from Texas all the way here to do this. He travels the country to different mass shootings. And there's actually a picture of him. That's him still drawing the little mural or the drawing that he's making back there in the back. But he made those crosses and painted the three victims' names on it. And people have been bringing flowers and making this a memorial ever since. This is a friend of mine, Felicia, who actually sent me these pictures. She lives in the area. She lives in the gunshots where she could have heard the gunshots close to the place. But she was there when the guy was putting this all together, and she took some pictures with them and all. I just want to show those pictures. And I have one more clip, Reverend Al Sharpton, and those I'm gonna let you speak before we go to this clip. But we have one more clip. Reverend Al Sharpton is talking about doing the Black Summit here in Jacksonville. He wants to move it to some of these places where it needs to be seen, in the South. So what were you getting ready to ask Dozell? I'm sorry.
Okay. What I was gonna ask you, I know there were a lot of concerns because this thing emanated at Edward's University, and people thought, and I heard you answer it in the beginning. Why do you think he went there to do that at Edward's, and do you think just them saying something to them actually called them off?
There's no doubt in my mind. He targeted Edward Waters University. He wanted to kill. In his manifestos, he put that he wanted to kill as many ends as possible. There's a lot more ends at Edward Waters University than are at that dollar store down there. So he went there intentionally. His plan was for that Edward Waters. The security, I believe, ran him away from there. And of course, I guess before he figured they'd get caught, stopped by the police, he wanted to stop and do the damage that he could do. And as much damage as he can do. Fortunately, God had it where it wasn't that many people at that particular store, I guess. He supposedly chased one female to the back of the store that had a small infant with them. And they was running back of the store, held up with some other females. And he went in there and pointed the rifle at them. And the lady looked at him, black lady looked at him and said, "Please don't kill me. I have a son. Please don't kill me." He said, "I'm not going to kill you." And he turned and went back out. So, I guess God stepped in and he didn't kill as many of us as he really wanted to. But those were his intentions. That lady and her kid ran 3 blocks over, and the police found her hiding in a backyard. So she was able to come and say that. One thing I want to definitely do, like I said, it's all about education. So I want everybody to know what to do in the event that you're ever caught up in an active shooter situation. I think it's important that I get this out there. And it's important that you first run. You run and try and run as far away as you can. If you're in that dollar store and he comes through the front door, you're in one of those aisles, run to the back of the store, run into their storage room, look for a back door to exit out that back door and continue running. You run as far as you can. If you run to that back door and that back door is locked where you can't get out, you then hide. So it's run, hide, and you hide. And I always tell people, if you have chance to grab something before you hide, some type of weapon, whether it be a pipe, a bat, anything that you can use as a weapon, a knife, anything you can use as a weapon, grab that before you hide. You hide and you stay as quiet as you can. And if that person enters that room that you're hiding in, the coward enters the room that you're hiding in, then you fight back. And when you fight back as violently as you can. I'm talking about you fight back, and with me, it's a mindset. I'm not going to be an easy victim. I'm not going to be an easy target. I won't be an easy victim. It's in my head of that. So when I fight back, I'm going to fight like that person's trying to take my life, because that's what they're doing. Active shooters are there to kill you. They want to kill as many people as they can, and that's how you have to respond. You have to fight back as violent as you can. If you have to gouge eyes out, if you have to bite them, do whatever it is that you have to do. But those are the three things that are instructed for you to do if you're ever involved in an active shooter situation. You run, you hide, and then you fight. And I like to say fight as violently as you have to fight to win. You got to go home at the end of that day. That's my mindset. At that point, if there are no questions, anything, I want to go to that last clip where Al Sharpton is talking about doing the and you know, I see Madam Producer has the names of the three victims up. I definitely want to call their names.
We're gonna close out the show with them in dedication.
Okay, cool.
We're running about 3 minutes over. We'll do that in just a second.
Okay, and then so now I guess we'll go to the last clip from Reverend Al Sharpton talking about bringing the summit here to Jacksonville, Madam Producer.
We spent the last couple of hours with the King family, Martin Luther King III, his wife Andrea King, and Yolanda, Dr. King's granddaughter, and the Reverend Dr. Bernice King, as well as leaders of civil rights organizations, talking with the president and vice president. 60 years ago today was...
The volume is very low on this, Madam Producer. I don't know if anybody can hear it. So if you would, could you just put that link up if they want to go to that link and look at that? We can cut it short and maybe put up that link where they can pull it up and see it for themselves.
There was a hate crime committed in Jacksonville. And when we got to the end of the march and heard about it, that's why we were marching. 60 years ago, 2.5 weeks after that march, there was the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church. We are having eerie memory that as much hope as we represent, there's always going to be those that will keep hate alive. We said to the president that we, along with many of our civil rights organizations, Anti-Defamation League with Jonathan, who is here with us, National Urban League, National Action Network, all of us put together a hate crime summit here at the White House. It's time for number 2, and we want to do it in Jacksonville, Florida. And we told the president we want to go to Jacksonville with a hate summit as the second one. We told the president that we want to deal with those businesses that made all of these commitments after George Floyd and did not keep those commitments in terms of diversity of employment, in terms of contracts, and in terms of their diversity. We told the president that there must be done more about curriculum of nonviolence. It was an open and very candid meeting, but we leave here determined to continue to stand together across racial lines and generations and try and make this country move forward as they stood out on the mall 60 years ago today and stood for a dream. That dream cannot be deferred by our inaction. Before I bring the leaders on, I'd like you to hear from Martin Luther King III and Reverend Dr. Bernice King.
Hey Kim, I want to say this. Kim and Janis, I hope the two of you are available on next week. If not next week, we'll do it when the two of you can come on. I definitely want to get Dr. Osgood on and Dr. Newman on to bring on as we deal deeper with this issue of hate and how we can work to eradicate it and how we can make our churches, our synagogues, our mosques, our schools, everywhere safer from mass shootings as a result of hate crimes. Would you all be down for that if we can pull this off next week? Just do part 2 next week?
Yes, absolutely, because there's another component to this, particularly if you have your legislator there. You know, I worked for Congressman John Conyers in Washington, D.C., and he authored amendments as well as hate crime legislation well over 30 years ago until he retired. And so that's another component that we need to look at is the hate crimes legislation, have a report card of your legislators in your state legislatures, as well as your federal legislators, U.S. House and Senate. How are they standing on hate crimes legislation to hold these shooters or murderers, however they might kill someone, accountable under hate crimes, which is a stiffer penalty? So I'd definitely be there to speak on that.
Dr. Osgood will be great for that. So thank you for bringing that up, Jan. And Jan, apologies for you. We didn't realize you were in the green room all that time. Apologies, really. We value your dialogue and your input. So thank. Hey, KV, can we pull this off next week? I'll get our guests, bring John Newman and Senator Osgood, Dr. Osgood, on with us next week.
Yeah, I think Newman would be great. This actually happened about 4 blocks away from his church.
Right.
So I don't know if you knew that or not, but it's right down the street from his church. We held that ceremony that we had Saturday was there at his church. So he's been connected since day one. He was there on day one, and he's very connected. And I think he's one of the most knowledgeable guys in the world. So yeah, I'd love to come back with him.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, Jan, but Dr. Newman is married to Omarosa.
She was there Saturday as well.
He was there Saturday.
Show with him last week. Yeah.
Okay, Kim, I want to thank you because for pushing for this show tonight, because I really was trying to do this thing one more time tonight, one more leisure show. And hey, shout out to Jimmy Buffett, who went on this past weekend. Shout out to him for what he brought to our state and the billions of dollars he brought here and the message. And he's a beach boy, and I'm a beach boy at heart. So we just appreciate what he has done. So, but Kim, thank you so much for pushing for this show. I needed you to push to do it. And Madam Producer, we had a lot of conversations about it, and to get us out of, hey, when stuff like this happens, we need to be right on top of it. So we're going to push to do this next week. And Kim, I just wanted to say this. You're talking about the summit that the Reverend Al was talking about bringing to Jacksonville. Janis, I know both of you all are aware of this. There have been millions of dollars that have left this state because of this clown in the State House. Millions of conventions to pull out of here. And we've lost big money from Disney. They had a $1 billion project that was coming here. I think it's looking at California now. So I hope this, usually, I hate to say this, but usually people of different skin color, they look at their pocketbook, they vote their pocketbook. And hopefully it's going to be one of the things that helps make a difference in.
Well, absolutely. The only thing that the United States, and I've said this in a number of forums, the only thing that the United States understands is money. And so I applaud Omega Psi Phi fraternity. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And I remember when we were going back in the 90s to Boston, and I said, why on earth would we go to Boston? And Boston does very racially hatred policies and does not care for its Black residents. Why are we going to spend millions of dollars there, travel, lodging, dining? And so I'm very, very pleased to know that Black organizations are pulling out. I understand that that could be a hardship for some of your small businesses, restaurateurs, etc. But those people then need to hold the governor accountable for the climate that he has created that makes people, and I'll say Black people, unwelcomed and fearful. The NAACP issued a travel warning to go to Florida, not to go to Florida. So I think more organizations that bring millions of dollars into those different areas, travel and tourism, need to speak with their money. And maybe that will make your governor understand that we are people, we are humans also, and should be treated with dignity as well.
Well, you mentioned
speaking on that, I think it was the Alphas who pulled out.
It was the Alphas first. Yeah,
Orlando.
Don't get hung up on your brothers
for that same reason. That's millions of dollars that come here. So
absolutely. It tends to be $40 million that Black fraternal and sororities organizations bring into any jurisdiction. And I am one who speak with my pocketbook. I always vote with my dollars. And I think that Black people, it has been stated by various academicians and scholars that the rate of consumption in the United States by Black Americans is equal to that of, we would be collectively over $16 trillion that goes into our economy by Black Americans, we will be considered a nation. That's the power that we have, and we need to wield that power, weaponize our dollars against anyone and any entity that is anti-Black in its policies, its actions, its speech.
KV, Janis, thank you all. I want to get Madam Kim. You had something you want to say?
Yeah, I want to thank our listeners. Aaron, Mac, who's with us all the time. Aaron, I think it's your first time joining us, man. I appreciate you coming on and being active like you was.
Yeah.
Mac Emerson is always there. Joe Trotty, thank you for your comments.
Bernard.
Big Sean, thank y'all for joining in with us tonight, man. We're here every Monday at 8 o'clock at the same site. Say it again.
Bernard Mason was there also.
Bernard Mason, I'm sorry. Yeah, I did see Bernard's name on there. He actually, his comment was that this was happening right in his neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, so I know he from that neighborhood. We all know it, knowing him from that neighborhood. So, but if I missed somebody, charged to my head, not my heart. I want to thank Janis for joining us. I didn't get to get into some of the things I wanted to touch on tonight, but we'll get it in the second show. But I thank everybody for joining in. This hatred has to stop. While I was talking, while this show was going on, I got 2 texts. One from a white sister that called and said, "Kim, what can we do for the Newtown community?" She didn't even know we was doing this, but she works with our FOP, and she's of all people.
Wow.
And she wanted to know what could she do, and she made the comments that y'all's governor should have made. She said, "I don't want to come in there as an entitled, privileged white person. I just want to come in and want to do something to help. I know there's something that we can do to help that community. What can we do?" So she's coming to me to ask me how she handle that, but she just wants to help. And you have so many people that want to do that. So we appreciate you. Sarah Taylor is her name. She, like I say, she's worked with the sheriff's office, and she just wanted to help. She's not even listening to this show tonight. She just happened to chime in and send me that. So anyway, I know Madam Producer wants to thank or show respect and honor to the victims. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut up. But thank everybody for tuning in, and hopefully when we do this the second time around, you'll be back and have some more comments for us.
See you next week with this. We want to do part 2 next week if we can get our other guests to come on. If not, the following week. Hey, God bless everybody. Thank you for watching the dialogue. Thank you, my brother, my sister. Thank you all so much for what you do to make this show.
And if y'all don't know it, Janis is our cousin. That's blood right there. That's our cousin from Detroit. So
right.
She's sharp, she's witty, and she knows what she's talking about. So thanks for being here, Janis.
Dialogue with Dozell. See you next Monday night.